Moments ago, the air inside the House of Commons shattered. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, stood frozen as the chamber erupted into a storm of jeers, boos, and furious chants. It wasn't opposition noise this time. It was coming from behind him, from his own benches. The Supreme Court's shock ruling had detonated like a bomb inside Westminster, ripping apart months of political control and exposing the Prime Minister's deepest failure, the collapse of his authority in real time. For weeks, Starmer had insisted that his new migration and border security bill would stand the test of law. He promised the public it would be firm but fair, a pillar of modern Labour leadership. But this morning, Britain's highest court declared it unlawful. The justices didn't just reject his bill, they humiliated it. In a ruling that spread across every news channel within minutes, the court accused the government of reckless overreach and breach of constitutional restraint. Within hours, the story spiralled out of control. As news broke, Parliament transformed into a theatre of chaos. Ministers whispered in disbelief. Labour MPs stared down at their phones, reading the judgment aloud. The Prime Minister's face tightened. Then came the first shout, a single voice from the backbench: resign. It was followed by another, then another. Soon the chamber was roaring. Members from both sides began heckling, waving copies of the court's decision like weapons. The Speaker's calls for order were swallowed by the noise. It was no longer debate. It was open revolt. The cameras caught it all. Starmer, once the man of law and order, now looked like a defendant facing his own verdict. Behind him, whispers spread, rumours of cabinet resignations, emergency meetings, and plots to replace him before Christmas. Across the benches, Tory MPs smirked, their jeers sharpened with revenge. "You lectured us about integrity," one shouted. "Now look at you!" Starmer tried to speak, his voice cracking through the uproar. "This government will respect the rule of law," he said, but the words drowned beneath laughter. Outside Westminster, the reaction was explosive. Social media feeds turned into firestorms of outrage and mockery. Hashtags like hashtag Starmer collapse and hashtag Supreme Court humiliation began trending across the UK. Protesters gathered outside Downing Street within hours, waving banners that read, "No man above the law," and "Democracy, not dictatorship." Commentators on live television called it the most public collapse of prime ministerial authority since the fall of Theresa May. Others went further, calling it a constitutional reckoning. But beneath the noise, there was something darker, a growing sense that this wasn't just a political blunder. This was a moral fracture. The ruling didn't just expose legal failure, it revealed a government at war with itself, a leadership that preached legality yet pushed the law to its breaking point. It wasn't just about one bill, it was about trust and the betrayal of it. The tension inside Number 10 was unbearable. Aides scrambled to draft statements, trying to spin disaster into dignity. Yet leaks from the corridors painted a grim picture, shouting behind closed doors, furious cabinet members demanding accountability, and advisers arguing over whether to confront or conceal the truth. "We warned him," one insider told reporters anonymously. "He ignored every warning." Now he's paying the price. By nightfall, the headlines told a single story: Starmer versus the system. The man who built his reputation on law had been crushed by the very institution he once served. His dream of firm leadership now looked like arrogance, his control slipping through his hands. Even loyal allies began to distance themselves. One senior minister, visibly shaken, told Sky News, "The Prime Minister must listen. The court has spoken. The country is angry, but it wasn't just anger. It was fear. A fear that the government had lost control of the narrative, of Parliament, of itself." In the pubs of Birmingham, the cafes of Manchester, the quiet streets of Kent, people whispered the same question: if the Prime Minister can't follow the law, who can? And as the night deepened, a single image defined the day. Keir Starmer standing at the dispatch box, surrounded by noise, humiliation, and history. A leader once known for discipline, now drowning in the sound of rebellion. Britain had witnessed a rare thing: power collapsing in public. The storm was only beginning, but one truth was already clear: the foundations of this government had cracked, and the cracks were spreading fast. The question now wasn't whether Starmer could survive the court's ruling. It was whether Britain's fragile faith in its leaders could survive him. By dawn the next day, Westminster was unrecognisable. The Supreme Court ruling had ignited a political inferno, and the flames were now crawling up the walls of Downing Street itself. The pavement outside Number 10 was flooded with reporters, their cameras flashing through the fog as if waiting for the next resignation. Inside, chaos reigned. Ministers argued in corridors. Phones rang endlessly. Advisers whispered of betrayal and strategy, but no one seemed to have control. The Prime Minister's team had gone silent on social media, a sure sign that the situation was far worse than anyone imagined. Starmer, once the